So we are starting our second class, and I am going to show you again how you're going to get to the information, if you haven't already figured this out, how to get to the information for the class. I'm going to share the screen. And we have the home page. One way of getting to Adult Ed is I changed this page a little bit, or you can hover over education. And then either there's over here on the side, it says registered students, that's you, or click on adult education, one of my favorite ways of getting there. And then, whoops, I have to get my pointer here. It's a teeny little red dot, but at least it's there. Look for the red line, say click here for resources page. That's another way for you to get to this information. And once you get there, we're going to the Hebrew from Day One class, clicking on here. It's the students only site for Hebrew from Day One. And I wanted to start off by reviewing. Some of you have not seen this page before. So I wanted to start off by reviewing a little bit from last week, especially if you hadn't been here before. So this is how it's going to work. Last week is here. These are the things we did last time. So remember that the goal of this class is just for you to be able to sound out what we put in front of you. You do not have to, and I know this is going to sound crazy, you don't have to know the names of the letters to be able to read. Sometimes it even gets in the way. Some of you, it's going to be unavoidable to be able to learn the letters. But I'm about to practice the Aleph song with you. That's why I'm saying this. But so far, we didn't really study any consonants. We only worked on the vowels. So today, we're going to start off by reviewing the Aleph song. We should do that every time. But I now have more materials for you. So these are videos teaching the Aleph song in two fun ways. I also have a website that I made for the kids. I'll show you this. It's kind of cute. And it has a million Aleph resources here. And in fact, I think I have more. Some of them are flashcards and some of them are things like this. Like we could sing the Aleph song with connects Aleph letters. We've got lots of ways of practicing. We're not going to do that today, but we've got down here is where you saw that cool thing where it teaches you how to write the letters. Like we're going to learn our first letter is going to be this, teaches you how to do it that way. It teaches you how to do the cursive. You could be a left-handed person. You could write it fast. You could write it slow. That's on that website. There's a lot of resources here, including an introduction about the Aleph that it goes from right to left, that there are no capital letters, that there are different kinds of styles. And I'm going to share that with you, but I don't want to give you too much at a time. I'm just showing you what's there. Some of you like to be overwhelmed by stuff. And then we have another page for vowels, and I'll share that with you also. But most of what you need is right here in front of you, right here. So I'm gonna double click on this, and we're gonna see an Aleph big. And I'm gonna take it a little bit bigger so you can see it. And we're gonna follow the bouncing ball here. You repeat after me, sing as loudly as you want. We can't hear you. I'm gonna have to be your voice on the repetition of this. And by the way, so for the first 3 classes, I'm going to let you have what I call the cheat sheet. I don't want you to be looking at the names of the letters, not because you're going to have to repeat them. So we're going to hear the sounds of them, but I don't want you to be thinking in English and Hebrew at the same time. I want you to see this. And even if it's not a letter that you know today, I want you to look at it when we're saying Aleph. And I want you to practice like that. So pretty soon I'm going to take away the cheat sheet part of this. Right now, it's okay. You're still in kindergarten. You'll be in first grade soon. Repeat after me. Aleph, bet, vet. Aleph, bet, vet. Gimel, dalet, hey. Gimel, dalet, hey. Vav, zayin, chet, tet. Vav, zayin, chet, tet. Yud, kaf, chaf. Yud, kaf, chaf. Lamed, mem, nun. Lamed, mem, nun. Samech, ayin, pe, fe, samech, ayin, pe, fe, tzadi, kuf, resh, tzadi, kuf, resh, shin, sin, tav, ba, ba, da, ba, dam, shin, sin, tav, ba, ba, da, ba, dam. And there's more to the song than that. And as I pointed out last week, there's a reason, even though I told you don't have to know the names of the letters, there's a reason why I have you sing the song. There are a few reasons. One is because if you ever have to look something up, or alphabetize something, it's way easier to do it if you have a song in your head. I'm sure you still sing the song in English. Also, I want to remind you that in Hebrew, if you know the name, let's say you've sung the song enough and you're more of a learner, that your learning style is one that the song helps you to learn. If you see a letter that you recognize and you remember, oh yeah, that's a bet, then you know that it sounds like b, because every consonant's name in Hebrew starts with the consonant sound that the letter makes. So it doesn't hurt to know the names of the letters, but it doesn't hurt to know them, but sometimes it gets in the way when you're trying to sound it out. Like if you saw the word Baruch, sometimes some language learners say, oh, that's a bet, so the word is bet Baruch. No, it's not. All right, the vowel aerobics on this are divided into two parts. And if I recall correctly, I think that's broken. So I'm going to click on this. I forgot to fix it. I think I fixed all the other links there. So this is a PDF file for your vowels. You can print this out and you can tell your printer, if your printer has this capacity, you can print it double-sided. So you're going to see the side A, and then the second page, the other side is what should go on the back of it if you're going to use them as flashcards for yourself. But for us, for now, what we need to do is this. This is a consonant. It doesn't matter which one it is yet. I'm just telling you it's a consonant, and that it's representing the spacing of most consonants. So if you see this underneath a consonant, then I want you to stretch up and I want you to say, ah. I hope you're stretching. I can't even see if you're stretching this time. Ah. This one is, if you see this under a consonant, then I want you to stretch like this and say, ah. So both of these, this is a short vowel version, and this is a long vowel version, and there's no difference in pronunciation between the two for modern Israeli pronunciation. Some people learned Ashkenazic pronunciation, and that would be an O, but this is for all practical purposes. If you ever wind up speaking the language, you're going to want this one to be an ah, and you're going to want this one to be an ah, and I'll explain the difference between them. It's not pronunciational. It has to do with which one's going to come where in a word, and you'll understand when you're older. You got to be in like third grade for that. If you have a dot under a letter, then I want you to squeak your nose like this. E, E. If you have a dot under a letter and you have this consonant next to it, so these two parts, the green parts make up this. So you're going to go E, E. So this one's a E, and this one's an E. We're going to get to the red one. And for some reason, the red is the one that most people forget. I don't know why. It's three dots. It's your nose. It's this hand. It's this hand. It looks like a bowling ball, but bowling ball doesn't make any of the sounds I need. It's going to be this dot, this dot, this dot. And it goes, eh, because I'm fed up. Eh. This one is kind of a lazier fed up. I have two dots. I have just my nose in one hand, and I go, eh. So this one is an eh, and this one is an eh. Then we go to the blue ones. And this one is, you see the guy is zooming down the tube slide and he's going, woo, or maybe woo. I don't know which way you could see me better. Woo. This one is Mr. Vav is up at bat, and the pitcher pitches it into his stomach and he says, ooh. So the pitcher's pitching it into his stomach and he says, ooh. And we pointed out the other day, and I'm glad someone asked this question, so I'm going to bring this up each time. So when you see this consonant vowel, this consonant with a dot in it, because this is also a standalone consonant, it's Mr. Vav, it's a Vav. When you see it with a dot in it, it can never sound like vu. That's never going to sound like vu. The combination of the two together will sound like ooh most of the time. If it's acting like a vowel, it's always going to be an ooh. There is we'll talk about another one, but I want you, most of the time, 98% of the time, I'm making up the numbers, but 98% of the time, when you see this, it's only going to be an ooh. It's never going to be a vu. That I can tell you. Then we have Mr. Vav is up at bat. There's a gray background, so you can see the yellow letters here, but there's the Mr. Vav is up at bat, and the pitcher pitches it over his head and he says, oh. So that's the O. And sometimes you're going to see the vowel just going over the letter without a Mr. Vav there, and it still sounds like oh. So both of these are O. And if you've been concentrating, you will have seen that we have a pattern here, that this one is ah, and this one is ah, and this one is e, and this one is e, and this one is eh, and this one is eh. So across this line, they're all sounding the same. And this one is oo, and this one is oo. So if this one is o, then guess what this one's going to sound like? O. It's what I call the saddest, most misunderstood vowel, and that's why he's going O. Believe it or not, it's hard to see there, but there's an O sound in his mouth. His mouth is shaped like O, because he's sad. Nobody ever gets him right. So most of the time, though, he's going to, some word processors are going to show a different shape to that, but not always. Now, I think someone was trying to say, you will, how long do you have to wait? Someone said for the other 2%. You have to know some words. We're not going to work on words yet. Once I show you the word, you'll see it and you'll say, there it is. All right, so then we go what my kids like to call below the line, because I had an old chart and these things came below the line. The things that we just learned, the a, e, o, u, those are the vowels. These two things over here are absence of vowel sounds. It's called a schwa. In English, some of you may know what a schwa is, but this is called a schwa. And the schwa does one of two things. It comes at the end of a syllable and it sounds like this. I like to think of these two dots as kind of like a stop sign, where one is the red and one is the green, and it's either going to stop or it's going to go. See how these hands are closer? So it's closer to you, it's orange. So the resting schwa, and they look identical. You'll know which one is which, because if it's at the beginning of a syllable, it's going to be impossible for you not to have an sound. So for example, in the word B'nai, like B'nai Zion, between the B and the N is one of these, B. But even if there was nothing there, if that were possible, which it isn't in a Hebrew word, even if there was nothing there, you would still make the same sound. The sound that comes between the B and the N is that's what's there. So actually, it reminded me, I have this really fun thing I wanted to show you. So this is a moving schwa. This is a resting schwa. Moving schwa is going to go up. Resting schwa is going to say. There are going to be times when you're going to see something that looks like this. I'm going to tell you that it is a moving schwa that's under a silent consonant or a silent-ish consonant. There are no silent consonants. We'll talk about that as we get to them. There are 4 guttural letters and they're silent-ish. But the important thing here is if you ever see this, then know that you pronounce it like this. And if you ever see this, notice that you have a schwa followed by an so just say the And if you ever see this, know that you have a schwa followed by the o, and so say the o. And then we get to the diphthongs, and this is just kind of for fun. You're not going to have to worry about this yet, but I'm going to show you diphthongs here. I'm going to show it to you like this. Move it over here. So this is, as we've said before, there really are only a few vowel sounds. There's a, e, o, u. This is what happens when I take an o vowel and I add an e vowel. That's how I make e, the sound of e. O plus e is oi. That's one of our favorite things to say, is oi. And then I'm going to clear that. I'm going to move down a little bit. I can't move down a little bit while I'm still in a drawing mode. So I'm going to move down a little bit and I'm going to take you to, stop it, take you to my other diphthongs right here. So we're going to text box it over here. I'm going to show you this one. This one is what happens when we have an a plus an e. When you put that together, it sounds like I, and it shocks some people because they think of I as, I like to call these kind of like, the diphthongs are kind of like when you have primary colors in an art world, because I can take a red and I can take a yellow and I could blend them together. The red is primary and the yellow is primary, but when I blend them together, I could get an orange, and you know all of those color combinations, I think. If not, see me after class. But when we're talking vowels, we've got the few primaries, and most people would like to think that I, since it's just a basic vowel, must be primary, but it's not. There's no way that you can say I without combining those two sounds. And you could prove it by saying I, like a capital I, say it in slow motion. I, and you'll see that this is what happens. You could go frontwards or backwards, and you're still going to get, by frontwards or backwards, I mean, you could say I slowly, or you could sound this out, I, and either way, you're going to get an I. Let's move this here, and let's change these and make it be plus E, and we get A, that's A. A feels like a primary vowel, but it's not. A isn't, is. So those are our vowels. That's our vowel aerobics. And I wanted to share something pretty cool with you that I did not share with the other class. So I think you're going to like this. I'm putting that here. I'm going to move this over here. Let's see if we can see that here. Nope, nope, it moved over to here. Let's see if you can see this. Can you see this? I hope you can see this. This is really cool. This is to show you how vowels kind of work. Somebody acknowledge in a chat that you can see this. Can you see this? Anybody? Can you see a thing that says HV? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there you go. Fastest ones. Thank you. So see if you can read what this says. This is what happens if you have the last one. If you have plus E is A. So this one is kind of what it would be like if we were going to take, kind of, sort of, if we were going to take the Hebrew vowels and put them under English letters. So we have an H with an A and a V, and it says have, and this is a Y with an U, have you. And now we have an E. Don't ask me why we're doing this. It's not exactly how it would work in English, in Hebrew, I mean, but it's have you ver. And then we say one. There's a silent schwa. Wanted. To see. What. Eat. Would. Be. Like. To read. English, sorry, I have to take away clear my drawing. English with Hebrew vowels. How ridiculous is that? I'll share that on the page too. I thought that was kind of fun. And I'm going to stop the share because I've got to get you back to the page so we can be learning our letters. And I apparently eliminated my page here for a second. So I'm rebooting the page. That was cute, wasn't it? That was fun. I thought you'd like that. I will share it with you. Sometimes I do those kinds of fun things with little kids because it, like I will have, there was a whole Star Wars day and we did lots of Star Wars character names in Hebrew letters to see if they could read them, or Harry Potter names and things like that. Something that they might know. It's a little bit, I used to never do that because I used to think, when you're thinking in Hebrew, there's wonderful patterns to the words, to the structure. And if you look at English words with Hebrew letters, it messes with your brain to try to get those sounds out. But if you don't know a lot of Hebrew words, it's hard to learn to read. When you learn to read English, if English is your native language, then you knew what a cat was long before you saw the CAT in your picture book or whatever it was that told you that that's what it was. And so when you finally learned how to sound it out, you said cat, and then, oh, I know what that is. But now with Hebrew, unless you have any Hebrew words, you don't know what they are. So sometimes I try to give you things that you might know what they are. I used to be a purist about these things. I'm not anymore. Sometimes I'll still not try to mess with your brain too much. All right, we're back to the Hebrew from Day One resources page. We just finished doing the Aleph Bet and the Aleph Bet song and the vowel practice. That was from last week. Today we are going to learn, drum roll, these two words from the Torah. This is cool. So we start at the very beginning of the Torah and we work our way across. If you click here, and you can't see what I'm clicking on, I don't know what happened to my little spotlight guy. If you click here, then you will see the first chapter 1. And it's going to be easier to see some of these words when you're looking at the textbook. If you print this textbook out, this is all of chapter 1, and make it a little bit bigger. You will be able to read these 2 words by the end of the lesson. So I want to show you a few things. This teeny little Aleph here, which you don't know it's an Aleph, but I'm telling you already, this teeny little letter here just tells you that it's verse 1. We're in chapter 1, verse 1. The letters also represent numbers. So this is verse 1. And then I want you to take a look at the vowels. Pretend we don't know any consonants, because most of us don't. So I want you to take this, and this one it's at the beginning of a word. So it's not a silent one, it's a moving one. So you're going to go, and this one is an eh. And this one is the 1 dot with the yud. So that's an e. And this one is ah. And this one is ah. So you know the vowels, which is part of why I teach the vowels first. And then in addition to vowels, there's these squiggly lines. There's this and this, those are my squiggles. Those are trope marks. If you were to look in a Torah or a Tanakh, in the Hebrew scriptures, anywhere in the Hebrew scriptures, whether it's the Torah part, the prophets part, or the writings part, you will see the trope marks. And the trope marks serve a few purposes. They're not critical for us to worry about now, but since there's marks under letters and you don't know anything about the marks under the letters, essentially, I thought I would let you know something about it. And I will say it a few times because as we're learning more and more, it'll mean more to you. But one of the things that it means is it's marking where the accented syllable is. So you know, once you get to this sound, and I'm going to tell you, the first 2 words are Bereshit bara. And you notice that I said I accented this syllable, Bereshit, and bara, I accent the end. Most of the words in Hebrew are going to have the accent mark be at the accented syllable be the end of the word. When it's not, you'll know it. Sometimes it's not for really good pattern reasons. I'll show you some of them hopefully by the end of the lesson today. By the end of the day, we're going to be able to read those 2 words. The next word after this, the 3rd word in, starts using letters that we don't have yet. One of the things I would like to point out is that in almost every book that writes down the Torah in Hebrew, and in every Torah scroll, you are going to see that you're not, by the way, in a Torah scroll, you're not going to see any of these vowels. You're not going to see this little Aleph. You're not going to see these dots, this dot, this squiggle. This dot, you're not going to see any of that. And you'll see that. I'll show that to you once we get to the end of the first day. I don't want to scare you yet today. Today, I need you to see it like this. But in almost every Torah scroll, you're going to see that the bet at the very beginning of the Torah is bigger than the rest of the letters. There is no such thing as a capital letter in Hebrew. And those of us who've grown up looking at books, especially like something fancy like a Bible, might be used to seeing the first letter in a fancy book, very illuminated pictures and all kinds of stuff interwoven into a letter. That's not what's happening here. In fact, in the other books of the Torah, if we look at Genesis, so the first letter is bigger, but in Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, the first letter is not bigger in any of those. In fact, in Leviticus, the last letter of the first word is smaller. We'll get to that eventually. But so the cool thing about having Hebrew be the language that the Torah is written in, and the language I'm going to arguably say is the language that God created the world with, using these letters and these sounds, although not necessarily the shape of the letters was different at the time of Moses. This is the shape of these letters are around 2,000 years old. So there was a question that came up that said, would you see the dot and the bet and in the Torah? No, you would not. And let me tell you, it's not just Torah that doesn't have those dots. The dots for the vowels are, you wouldn't see them in like I say, in a romance novel or a newspaper or a cereal box. You wouldn't see any of those dots. Hebrew, they write it without the vowels. You're going to see vowels in children's books. You're going to see vowels in a Torah book. You're going to see vowels in a prayer book. Every once in a while, if you're in a newspaper and you get to a name that you might not have heard before, like if it's the first time you're seeing Trump as a name, then you might see vowels in case you might confuse it with something else. or Biden, you want to know how to pronounce it. And after a while, you know it well enough that you're not going to need the vowels anymore. So, but most of the time you're not going to see it, and the dots and the bets are not going to be there. All right, we've looked at enough, but there's a cool question that you can ask yourself is, why did God start the world, create the world with the letter bet? And why is that bet bigger? And we're not going to answer that one today, but we're going to look at these letters. So the first letter we're going to learn is this. And I would love for you, if it's possible, to take out something that you can write with. For me, it's going to be drawing. And I'm going to show you how to write this letter in block letters. If you want, I can show it to you in cursive. Whoop, that's not what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do is this. I'm going to draw a box here so that I can show you approximately what the size of a letter looks like. A box is a comparable thing. You know how in English, some letters are bigger or wider than others. So if we look at, so if we look at the consonants, if we look along here, I'm spotlighting again. So you see the letter I and the letter T are skinnier than the letter H, and the letter H and the letter A have the same width as the letter S. So some letters are thicker and wider, and some are skinnier. So I wanted to just show you if this is what we're going to say is kind of a normal letter, like the A and the N and the D are all the same width. This is going to be kind of a normal width for a Hebrew letter. I'm going to show you how to write it. So let me get a good color. Just like in English, there are some core shapes. Like if I'm making I's and T's, I'm making straight lines. If I'm making O's and A's, I'm making circles. So in Hebrew, there are some core shapes that we use to make a lot of letters. And one of them is the one that we're going to use for the beginning of Resh. And you're going to forgive me because I'm trying to do this with a mouse, which is a little bit squigglier than a little bit shakier than if I'm doing it freehand. And we did have a way the other day for me to use my iPad and try to write instead, but this is okay because then you can see the rest of the text on here too. But that's going to be our first core shape. So I'm going to make a few of those just so that you can see. Sometimes it's going to look rounder. Some people are going to make it more blocky for block letters. It's supposed to go straight down, ignore that other part. And then what I want you to do is straight down below from the top left corner here, straight below that, I want you to make a bar on the bottom, and that base is going to go beyond where this part is here. There's a base that goes beyond there, and there's going to be a ball in the belly, or some people call it a belly button. If you have a bar on the bottom with a base that goes beyond and a ball in the belly, that is the letter bet. It sounds like B. A bar on the bottom, base goes beyond, ball in the belly. Bar on the bottom, base goes beyond, ball in the belly. That's what I want you to see. I don't want you to think of it as a bet. You're allowed to know that it's a bet. Bet is the second letter of the Aleph bet. It represents the number 2. You don't have to know any of that. You just have to know that when you see that you know how to, you're going to have to say B. I'm going to clear these drawings because I want to show you the bottom of the page for a second. And then I will also, I've been requested to also teach the cursive. I will teach you the cursive, but I want to show you how this works. So these letters that are in bold here are 2 letters that are part of, let's see if I made this too big for us to see it all at the same time. These are the first 2 words of Torah. And this, the bet with a underneath it, and the B with an A underneath it, those are the 2 versions of the bet, that the 2 vowel combinations that are going to be in the Torah in the part that we have. So I made them bolder down here, but this essentially is the bet with all of the possible vowel combinations. I'm not using diphthongs here. I'm just using all of the we'll call them primary vowels. So if I have, and there are other places, by the way, for you to see this. This is kind of cool. Let me show you this while we're doing this, because this is another way that you can see. If you come back to this main page and you click on your bet here, hopefully it's spinning, you get a bet learning page. The bet learning page shows you but forget this, it's on Hebrew Doc. I don't know why it keeps thinking it's suspicious. It's not suspicious. I made this page. I made it in the 90s, so it's got old code in it, but it's still okay. So it looks like this in many books. It's kind of a book font. It's called bet. This is kind of what it looks like if you're writing it in block letters. I say kind of because it's a font So it's not a font of block letters. It's just a font that's kind of a sans serif font that looks like handwriting. And I'm going to show you also how to do cursive. So while we're here, let me do that. So a cursive, it's a regular size. So you're going to do and then a dot in it. You're going to start on the left. You're going to come down to the baseline and you're going to put a dot. I'm going to show you actually how you can find all of this information if you keep scrolling down. If you come down here, and this is what I was going to show you is how we can read all of them. If you click on this bet with an underneath it, then it sounds like
ba,
ba. And if you click with this one,
ba,
ba. So you can listen to them, click on them and listen to them
be,
like this. But I also have and I'm going to just show it to you for the bet. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this first. Let's go through all of them. So if I have a b with an it sounds like
ba,
if I have this but with this kind of an it sounds like
ba,
if I have the b with a it sounds like
be,
if I have this but with this kind of an it sounds like
be,
if I have the but with the e, it sounds like
b,
if I have this but with this kind of an e, it sounds like
b,
and I hope you're practicing by like acting out the vowels. It's really helpful.
bo,
Bo. If I have this one with, now you'll notice on this font, instead of it, the kamats, the short vowel one, compared to, excuse me, the long vowel one, this font has a little bloop at the bottom, but they made it longer, the bottom longer. You may see in some books, you may see some distinction between the version and the version, but sometimes you won't. Prayer books sometimes will show them. It frustrated me during the times when they didn't, but the new prayer books do. But anyway, so this one is the bo. This one is a but. This is kind of adorable. It looks like two eyes staring at you, but the but with the oo is going to sound like boo. This is the but with the zoom slide going boo. And this is but with a moving schwa. You're not going to have a but with a resting schwa ever. Well, we won't worry about that, but a but at the moving, because we're doing beginnings of syllables in this. But then if you look at this, sorry, click on the purple thing, and I know that apparently someone said that some of the colors didn't translate very well, but if you come to here, the show me's,
this is the Hebrew.
Hold on. What?
It's made, but
okay, I think I stopped it. So it's the Hebrew letter bet. This is
starting with this
teaching you
crochet,
how to do it.
and then
I've got your
beginning with
lines.
the left part, you make a bar on the bottom, but the base goes beyond, and a ball in the belly. Try it again. Core shape, but then make a bar on the bottom with the base going beyond, and the ball in the belly. Bar on the bottom, base going beyond, and a ball in the belly. It's the letter B.
And then abracadabra, go away.
Now
And
try writing it in cursive. In the cursive, you make a curvy shape like this and boing back again with a ball in the belly. Curvy shape, boing back again with a ball in the belly. A curvy shape with a boing and a ball in the belly. It sounds like B, and it represents the number 2.
you'll notice that some people will write it so it's curvier and not necessarily pointy down here, but both of them are acceptable. Neither one is bad. That's just the way I do it. There is a page on the Hebrew Doc site that has every letter of the Aleph Bet, and I should probably link to that. I probably have it somewhere. And then there's the Learn the Lesson PDF of this so that you can see what each of these things are. It teaches you the letter this way with the core that would have been in that chapter. And then you can print out flashcards that have one side that looks like this with big giant versions of each letter. It's 2 pages of that. And then you have to put it back into your printer and print the other side. And the other side on this, I always like a flashcard for Hebrew where you get to see the thing again. If the other side was this big giant but with an underneath it, then I want you to see it here again. And I want you to associate it with the things that you're seeing. Ba, it's telling you the names Don't worry about the names, but it is at one point, somebody's going to go freaky and want to know them. And so you've got every single combination of but with that. And then there's a coloring version, because sometimes I think people need to learn by coloring them to be the letter. So that's the ba. We got the first one down. So far, so good. And then we're going to get to, I'm going to go back to our text, but you now see what all of these are. Those are complete learning methods for each one and the practice on it. Whoops, I'm going to go to the text. Back to the text. So we now know how to read the b and the ba from the beginning of each of these words. And then what you see here in the dark letters, the second lesson. Second lesson, I turn myself back into a drawing thing. First, I have to make a box, and I have to make a little yellow box, so you know. So this is approximately, I don't know what color that is. That doesn't look like yellow. It's approximately this size, each of the letters. And the resh is actually the core shape we already saw. It's going to come down. You want to try to make it rounded. It's supposed to go straight down ideally, but it's going to be rounded over on this end. It's rounded. And you can see here, I made it rounded to show you his Rosh. It's a word that I think a lot of people already know. You have Rosh, like Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. Rosh, the letter Resh represents head. Each letter used to be a pictograph in an early version of Hebrew. The pictograph for the Resh was head. The pictograph for the bet was bayit, was house. I sometimes make the kids, I'll give you a big giant piece of paper with the bet in the middle of it, and you have to turn that into a house. Not hard to do. There's a cute little window in the big middle, or a doorknob, or however you want to do it, but be creative about it. But anyway, we have the Resh. And so then we're going to take a look at, turn this not into, and by the way, so the cursive form of Resh looks exactly like, it's a little bit more round than, and it comes around a little bit more. Go to the lesson and you'll, maybe we should be doing that. I don't know which one works better for you. If we go back to this. And one of the things I had requested was, as you're playing with this, I have some control about, if let's say you click this and you go to the next page, you notice how it's in the same tab. I can make it so it's a separate tab in case you wanted to go back and forth. Let me know if that's something that you think works better or not. So here you can see a kind of a difference between what it looks like in the book with a little serif on there, what it looks like in a block, which is round, but what it looks like in a cursive, it looks kind of like a crescent moon over there. It's rounder. This one I'm doing here because I think it's easier to see these consonant vowels, they're bigger. So if we have a R with an A, it's, oh, and the thing I didn't tell you, the resh is the rounded resh is going to be one of those consonants that's going to let everybody know where you're from originally, because most Americans, they say the letter R like that, R. Officially, the pronunciation for the resh, if you were a TV announcer, it was supposed to be a gentle trill, like r, r, back here, r. But most people will say it as like what I call a French R. It's like r, back here, r. So I'm going to pronounce it in an Israeli, modern Israeli pronunciation. So I have a resh and an a, I would say ra. And this one is going to be ra. And this one is going to be re. And this one is going to be re. And this one's going to be ri. And this one's going to be, I'll go above it instead, ri. This one is going to be ro. And this one is also going to be ro, because that's the sad misunderstood version of it. This one is going to be ru, or it's going into the stomach. This one is going down the zooming down the tube side is ru, and this one is going to be r. So that's your letter resh. It represents the number 200. That's going to come in handy rarely, but it's there. And then we're going to do the next one. The next one, I kind of love this one. This is the letter that I think is if you can have a favorite letter, which I kind of don't, I think it's this one. So if I make my little box again to show you how to do this, because this one I especially like because it has kind of a mystical tradition to it. So this one, we're going to draw it by starting, first we're going to draw it and then I'll explain to you what I think is cool about it. We're going to draw it by starting here and going down to that corner. And then we're going to start at this top right corner and go to below the center. And then we're going to start at the above the center and go to the bottom. And that is an Aleph. And what I wanted to show you about the Aleph is that according to Jewish mysticism, when you see a letter, what's important is not just the part of the shape that you see. I'm going to call it, let's say, the black part of the letter, but it's also the white part that you can see behind it. And so I'm going to show you what happens when we look at the black part of the letter Aleph. You'll see that in some ways, the black part is showing you that it's pointing this way, and it's pointing this way, and it's pointing this way, and it's pointing this way. It's exactly negative space. So it's kind of pointing in all directions. And if you look at the negative space, as Vicky's pointing out it is, then you see that it fills up and is pointing to all of the spaces that the black part, the written part isn't showing you. The fact that this consonant is pointing to every direction, and it is the only consonant that does this, it is pointing to everywhere, means that you open your mouth very big and you make your mouth point to everywhere and you say, that's what the Aleph sounds like. Actually, not exactly. The Aleph is a little bit louder than that. The Aleph sounds like, it's called a glottal stop. Try to say the word ouch. And you'll notice that before you get to the O, I'm going to call it, your throat closes down, opens up, and makes a kind of a sound. That's what an Aleph sounds like. It's incredibly quiet. It is not silent. It's not a silent consonant when it's at the beginning of a syllable, but it's really quiet. But I want to point out that the word for God, one of God's names, or a number of God's names actually start with the letter Aleph, which I think is a really cool thing when you realize that one of God's names starts with a letter that points in all directions, but you can't hear very loudly. And I think that in some ways it's kind of symbolic of God, that God is something that you either see but don't hear. Sometimes you hear but don't see. Sometimes so I kind of love this. And we'll talk about more letters of God's name as we get to them and symbolisms about it. But I really love the letter Aleph for all kinds of reasons. It's frustrating that it's the beginning of the alphabet, because if I want to teach you that the name of the consonant always begins with the sound that the consonant makes, in reality, the Aleph, when I ask kids what consonant sound does the Aleph start with, most of them are going to say ah, and I'm going to say no, that's not a consonant, because it's not, it's a vowel. But before you get to that vowel, so we're going to have a little bit of an interesting practice here, because we start with the regular ones. So we have ah, and it's just going to sound like ah. It's as if there was no consonant somehow. It's like what we had on our practice space for our flashcards and things. This one is ah, and this one is eh, and this one is eh, and this one is e, and this one is e, and this one is o, and this one is o, and this one is ooh, and this one is ooh. But then we have three more at the end. Instead of just a regular moving schwa like we had with b and r, an Aleph is a silent, it's a guttural. Look how fancy this Aleph is. It's got a squiggly thing on here. That's an artifact of the internet. I didn't make that font be that font. But anyway, for the vowels, an Aleph is one of those four consonants that are essentially silent or quiet or gutturals. And this they're called auxiliary vowels, are going to have to be there whenever you need a moving schwa under that consonant. So you will have a situation where you will see this. And when you see this, say ah. And when you see this, you say eh. And when you see this, say oh. You have show me lesson for the Aleph, you have the learn the lesson, you have your flashcards, all of that is there for your Aleph for each of the letters. I want to point out when we go to the text that we're practicing here, I don't know if you can see this well, or if I have to go back to our, let me go back to our first lesson, it's easier to see from here. I want to point out something else about this. We're back in our complete chapter. I want you to look at the first word. So we had the b with an underneath it, which is b. We have the resh with an e. When we have the aleph in this word, there's no vowel on that aleph. So I have to tell you that other than the very end of a word, every consonant in a word is going to have a vowel marker. Sometimes it may be a schwa, but it's going to have some kind of vowel marker until you get to the end of the word. If an aleph doesn't have a vowel marker, it means that it is not acting like a consonant. Just like in this case, we learn this combination because it's an official vowel, the dot with the yud, it's called a chirik malay, it has its own name and all these other things. Just like this is really not its own consonant, but it's part of the vowel. In this case, the aleph is really part of this eh vowel. And the reality is it made the eh even longer. So we would pronounce this bore, and we'd make this eh turn into an a. And here in this word, we have a ba and a ra, and this aleph is silent. So we have to turn off your video. The aleph at the end of a word is silent. So we have bore and we have bara. And then we get to our next consonant. We only have two more. I think we may make this. We may be able to read the whole word. So the next one is this. I want you to take your 3 fingers and I want you to put them in front of your mouth like this. I don't know if you can see me. And I want you to make air come shushing out of your mouth like this. Shh. That's the sound that you're going to make from air coming out of your teeth, because the name of the letter is Shin, and the Shin in Hebrew means tooth. And so I'm going to try to get to, okay, it's spinning. All right, here we go. In this case, I think it does help to have the pictures from the lesson. Although when you watch the show me for this one, it's really adorable. I did some animaty things that were kind of cute. This was all new territory for me to be able to use that show me thing. But you take the air coming through your teeth and you make the sound shh, and that's the sound that a shin makes. So we're going to practice the shin with all of the vowels. So we have sha, we have sha, we have she, we have she, we have she, we have, which reminds me, by the way, when we say she, I'm supposed to point out, I didn't even show you how to write this one. Let me show you how to write this one, because I have to tell you something important about this. So I'm back to, we have this, and I have a color, and we have a box. So if this is, and I didn't show you how to do the Aleph in cursive either, because you now know how to find it. It's there. I teach it to you in the show me's. So we have a shin looks like this. I'm going to start over here. I'm going to go all the way across. Notice I'm going from right to left, up. It's not supposed to be out of the box. It's in the box. And there's 2 different ways of doing it. You can make it like this, so it really looks like teeth down here. You could make it like rounder, and you can make something that goes to the side, kind of fancier like that. Each of those, whatever we do, whether some people even, you'll see some fonts that it looks even kind of triangular. All of those are shins. But you need the final touch, and that is a dot on the right side, because she is always right. So when you see a dot on the right side, you know that's a shin. And we practiced. So we have in our text, we're going to see Whoop, erase my guys here. We're gonna see, ooh, come on, erase them, all my drawings. All right, and then I have to turn it into a spotlight again, or I can't move at all. Come on. So we look at this and we see re, she, and then we have bara, and we only have one more letter to do. But while we're sitting on this page, I'm going to show you how to make an Aleph. Aleph looks like this, and you're going to make kind of like that, and a line, and this, and a line. No, it's supposed to be taller. This mouse business is for the birds. So that's an Aleph. So since it's cursive, sometimes you'll see them slant more. Sometimes you'll see people make them so that they're touching. All of those things are Alephs in cursive. And then we shift to, go down, 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 the last letter. And the last letter, whoa, and then there's reading practice, which we probably won't get to today, but that's okay. I need you to be, okay, there you go. So first I'm going to show you, as usual, I'm going to have a box so you can see what it looks like. This is going to be using that same core that we've been using and start our it was the beginning of bet, it was the Resh, and we're going to start with that core shape again, only this time I want it to be attached at the top left, and I want there to be a tail or a toe at the bottom left, and that gives you your tav. And it turns out you'll see that there's nothing bold down here. It's still going to sound like ta, and it's going to sound like ta, and it's going to sound like te, te, t, t, which makes me tell you that sometimes when we just say all of these random sounds, we're doing them in order. It's going to say words that are going to make you giggle. And sometimes kids are going to giggle if you just said TT. I know, she just said TT. It happens, it gets worse, trust me. But it's going to be those things. But since the word that we're using here, the beginning of the Torah, has a tav at the end, there's no vowel underneath it. Because remember, the last consonant of a word doesn't take a vowel 99.5% of the time. So the word that we have, the first word of the Torah, is Bereshit bara. Bereshit bara. Bara means he created. Bereshit, I'm going to let you think that it means in the beginning. It kind of doesn't mean in the beginning. We'll talk about what it means later, because the important part right now for today's lesson is not that you know what the words mean. It's that you can sound them out. That anything I put in front of you, you would be able to sound out. You'd be able to sound out all of these words. And I guess I need to make a show me or something of this so that you can practice these words and you'll know if you're right or not. But we don't have time for that today. Our next group gets to start in about 2 minutes. So I am going to stop the recording.